Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Bengal Tiger podcast. I'm Matthew Brune, and joining me once again for this recruiting pod is Shea Dixon. Shea, how you doing today?
I went to camp yesterday. It was like 1,000,000 degrees for the first time all spring. And Jarrett and I stood around for hours and hours, and Cody Belair, one of On3's national rankings guys with Charles Power, but was drained. Got up today, did some work, but now I'm fully motivated because if you're on YouTube, Matty B got the freshest of cuts out here.
The buzz.
I mean, looking sharp. This is why you got to check out YouTube. I listen to most of my podcasts on just Spotify. So when there are these moments where someone directs me to YouTube, I go look it up. So if you want that fresh fade look,
there you go.
Matty B's got it.
There you go. The five.
But other than that, we're in official visit season, Matty B.
Yes, we are. I'll be out there. I'll probably go out June 12th, I think is the next elite camp. But then I realized June 20th, I don't think I'll be able to go. I'm going to Colin's baby shower. So
there you go on the graphics side. So we're keeping it in the Bengal Tiger family here as it gets bigger.
Yes. So let's talk about recruiting here for a bit. LSU has had is in the process of having a couple big visitor weekends. They had their first one last week. I'm recording this on June 6th for context purposes. What was last weekend's visitor weekend? How did that go? And then we can transition into kind of what this one is about to be.
Yeah, sort of the kind of short and skinny Cliff's Notes version here would be that LSU goes into the summer really jockeying with Southern Cal for the number one class. It's been back and forth, 1-2, 1-2. They're currently 2, LSU, 9 commitments. So the summer months are expected to add, you're going to get into the double digits. You'll start to add guys ahead of their senior seasons in the fall. And a lot of guys wait until after this wave of June official visits before they make an announcement, whether that be in late June, July, or early August before they start their senior year out and kind of turn the focus to school and football, and vice versa for the colleges. So it's kind of a really important, call it 6 weeks that we're in the midst of. And as you mentioned, week 1 last weekend, double-digit guys, but all of them out of state. So I always say when you've got 12, 13, I think they had 12 official visitors. When you've got that many on campus, all from out of state, all of whom are still set to take a lot of official visits in the coming weeks. And again, official visits are where the school pays for it. You bring your family, girlfriend, whoever it might be. And that's where you see all the, photo shoots and dinner with Coach Kelly and, the staff, and going to his house for, a meal and a hangout, whatever it might be. Those are these weekends, kind of where the red carpet's truly rolled out and every recruit gets to visit an official or a school one time on an official visit. So anyhow, a week ago, double-digit guys, Matty B, I would say that normally if you can reflect back in December, the early signing period, or February signing day, and say they signed 2 guys, 3 guys maybe, out of a group of 12, all of whom were uncommitted anywhere, that it would be successful. These guys are coming from all over the country, but it started at the top of the 5-star, Emanuel Tucker, who's the number 2 player in the country. LSU has surged in a major way here. I mean, we're talking about a 6 foot, nearly 7, 300-plus pounder at offensive tackle, who is considered to be a guy who can compete to play right away when he gets to college. And LSU is sort of battling to be in the top 8 at one time, Matty B, and we're recording this, as you said, on Friday, June 6th. Earlier, Hayes Fawcett from On3 put out that he's down to 4 teams, and LSU is one of them. So Oregon, I think, is the team a lot of people have viewed as to beat, but LSU is in the mix, maybe even in the top 2 here for one of the best players in America and an offensive tackle. And if you went down the list, I mean, they had a lot of D linemen in. I thought that if you're talking about high school guys that they made moves with, that Deuce Gerald's, whose dad is from Scotlandville and played at Ole Miss, signed with Frank Wilson when he was on staff at Ole Miss. Now his son's coming through his recruitment, coming out of Georgia, but I think he's going to go out of state for college, and LSU certainly is in the mix there. And then I would look at a guy really on the JUCO side, in DeMarcus. Oh, I'm going to get his name wrong. Let me make sure I'm right here. DeMarcus Johnson, who is a Louisiana native, but family moved to Texas. He went to Fort Bend Marshall, and now he's at Hutchinson in JUCO. And everyone kind of felt like, oh, that the portal is going to kill JUCO recruiting, and we haven't seen it kind of at the uptick it used to be at. But now that JUCO doesn't count against your eligibility, it makes it a bit more enticing. And he is the number 2 player in JUCO as a defensive lineman. And I talked to him earlier today, actually, and he said that he doesn't have a decision date set, but he also has a lot of other offers right now coming out of JUCO and has no other official visits scheduled. So getting him and his family in was big. I think he's going to end up in the class. I put an On3 RPM pick for LSU. So you're looking, Maddie B, at guys like, okay, you go portal heavy, and that's where they found D-line help. Here's a guy who's going to be a few years older already and is getting pretty heavily courted coming out of JUCO that can kind of be a plug-and-play guy for you if he continues on this trajectory where he plays this fall in JUCO and then signs with the team in the offseason. But look, we can circle back, and we'll talk about him in a bit, but they're only after one quarterback right now, and they don't have a quarterback committed, and he is a top 5 quarterback who is the only uncommitted quarterback in the top 5, Bowe Bentley. He's down to LSU and OU. And he brought not just his parents, but siblings, girlfriend, cousins. I mean, everyone was on that visit to LSU a week ago before Oklahoma's visit. So I think that if we look back, and golly, if they signed Bentley and one more guy, you'd consider it to be a success because you got your quarterback and then you landed another player. But I do think when we kind of reflect back on this weekend on signing day, you don't want to go over. I think they land at least one guy, if not more than that. And who knows? Trenton Henderson out of Pensacola, D-end, who's a top kind of 100 player, top 10 D lineman, D-end, edge rusher prospect. He still has visits left, but they surged with him. So, look, it could range. I think they trended up with a lot of guys here, but I think the ones people are really watching are one of the best OTs out there in Iheanacho, a quarterback in Bentley, and then look, how can you get D-line help? And as I mentioned, there were a number of guys on campus that they could end up landing.
Yeah, that's a good rundown of that weekend. And if we transition into this upcoming weekend, I think it's really interesting because then you flip it to the offensive side of the ball a little bit more. And you already mentioned one offensive tackle, but there's 3 visitors that are coming in that I think people will already know about if they're subscribed to Bengal Tiger On3, but will definitely be interested in their recruitment. I think at running back specifically because we don't, in this class, it's been a little bit, trying to figure out what running backs they're going to go after. And now it's
spot on, Maddie B. You've learned well of just having to be on these recruiting pods. This is the pods over the year, I should say. You're as tuned in as anyone now. It's like Caden Durham, right? I mean, a year ago, Frank Wilson signed 2 top 10 running backs. Both were from Louisiana, 5-star Harlan Berry and then JT Lindsay out of Alexandria. But the year prior, during the spring, it became evident of like, who are they recruiting at running back? And then it was Caden Durham and only Caden Durham. Yep. And that same kind of question loomed a bit longer this time around. But now it's KJ Edwards, who's also coming out of East Texas, Carthage. And look, he's a top 5 number 3 running back in the country. So Texas, I mean, all of this in-state schools are on him. But where does LSU kind of fit into the mix here as the one out-of-state team that I think people are really keeping a close eye on with this visit coming up? So, look, what is that? If you're looking on YouTube there, I mean, ranked as high as the number 2 running back on 24/7, On3's number 3 running back, On3 industry ranking, top 4 running back, and top 50 players. So I think that when you kind of look at, hey, they do need running backs, right? Like even if you take one, you may have to go into the portal and get another guy. But for Frank Wilson, who's one of the best recruiters in college football across the past 2 decades, you would say, when he circles just one guy like he did Durham, then that means it's someone to keep a really close eye on. And I think this weekend, look, getting Edwards to campus, his family, smaller visitor weekend by design, only 3 guys because they're in the middle of camp, a 3-day camp stretch where they had an elite camp, a Friday youth camp, and then Saturday they have a huge 7-on-7 tournament with teams from all over. So they kind of try to spend, fewer recruits gives them the ability to kind of balance having camp and recruits on campus. But it's a big one. I think when the dust settles from this weekend, we'll know if it's real or not, whether or not kind of Frank Wilson can end up signing Edwards out of Texas.
And you got two more top 150 players here.
Yeah.
Offensive tackle Emanuel Tucker and tight end Israel Briggs.
Running back, OT, tight end is a nice little run of guys to have for the offense.
Yeah. So Joe Sloan and the offensive staff will be plenty busy this weekend. Where you at just with those other two as well?
I think Emanuel Tucker is a guy that I touched on in my piece on Friday on the Bengal Tiger, the trend meter, and I had trending up. This is a kid coming out of New Albany in Mississippi, which is, within an hour's drive of Ole Miss, but, would be considered rebel territory. But he'd been committed to state, and he decommitted from Mississippi State this past week. And that was sandwiched in between a visit to Oxford and now his official visit to LSU this weekend. And he's been a guy we've talked about for a while, because even though before he committed to state, while he was committed to state, LSU had made him a big priority. He and Cooley coming out of Mississippi were two guys that they circled and said, okay, you have a couple of linemen committed. You have a top 10 offensive tackle already committed in Bryson Martinez from here in the Baton Rouge area, but you're going to have to go out of state for some guys. They do border state as well as anything recruiting wise. And a year ago, if you'll remember, they signed the number one O-lineman out of Mississippi in Tyler Miller. Now, that's a South Mississippi kid in the Pine Belt area. This is a kid coming out of New Albany, which is much more Ole Miss territory. But it's the Rebels in LSU. And I will say, I think that LSU leads right now. I do, even coming off that Ole Miss visit. So when we talk about the future at offensive tackle, this is a guy that we're paying pretty close attention to.
Yeah. Then a tight end.
And then Briggs. Yep. Tight end's interesting because, right, they had turnover on staff there, Matty B. Nagel ends up taking the OC job at Houston. They hire Alex Atkins, who had been the OC at FSU. As now he's tight ends coach for LSU. It also has O-line coach experience. So that was kind of one of the big splash kind of assistant hires in the SEC this offseason, was Florida State coming off a really bad year, obviously. Had made some staff changes, and for LSU to be able to grab Atkins was a big deal. And look, I've talked to sources. They're going to take one tight end this cycle. Probably add a JUCO guy too, but you've added Bowers Sharp, and you've got Trades Green, and then JD LaFleur behind him. So you'll beef up that room a bit through high school and the portal. But this past weekend, Braden Vogel, a kid who's a top 15 tight end in the country coming out of the Midwest. He and his family were in for an official visit. Now you get Briggs, who's coming out of Redwood in California. Really good size, but also one of the more highly coveted guys in terms of offers at tight end. And I feel like Atkins is just going to bring in kind of his top group of tight ends over June, get a feel for everybody, and, eyeball them, spend time around them, and then see ultimately who's really interested, who's not, who you could get that one commit from. So add Briggs just to the list of guys at tight end that are on that short list of, hey, this is who they're pretty serious about, and they're trying to see kind of if they are really in the mix or not.
So with those official visits coming up and in the rear view, we can shift our focus a little bit to some other guys that we just have to talk about on a recruiting pod. We can't go recruiting pod without talking about Tristen Keys, the LSU commit, who is number one receiver in the country out of Hattiesburg, Mississippi.
On my alma mater, Hattiesburg High. Shout out.
We have
Tigers.
to talk about him every pod because there's always something going on with Tristen Keys. What's the latest with Keys, and just where you at with his recruitment right now?
And the number one wide receiver in the country doesn't sit home all day. He's got to go do things, Matty B. But look, there's a lot of storylines here. One being that he'll be back at LSU again this weekend for an unofficial visit, but Hattiesburg High will be competing in the 7-on-7 at LSU on Saturday. So that's good. He did a Thursday to Saturday, or I should say is currently on a official visit to Texas A&M. All these were kind of planned ahead and before he committed to LSU, but Miami was a week ago. And then he's got more coming up and ends it this month with LSU on June 20th. So, look, he's still committed. He's now visited twice in 2 weeks, 2 weekends. He'll have been on campus 2 times. And these official visits, all that was expected. I think everyone shifted from that storyline to him signing with Adidas, and then kind of the only official visit that had been made was Miami, who was an Adidas school. I think that Miami didn't broker a deal to get an Adidas thing done. He had been doing things with Adidas for a while now, and even back, that's when he had made his first trip down to Miami was in an Adidas photo shoot. So he finally does ink an NIL deal though at the high school level with Adidas officially to be a partner with them. But 2, that doesn't affect anything he's going to do in college. That deal can continue because we've seen it notably on the women's basketball side, really. Flaugier, Haley Van Lith, when she was going through her process, was she Adidas or someone else? I can't remember.
Yeah, she was Adidas, I believe. Yes,
but now in the NIL era, that doesn't have to end because you're a Nike school. Like they can continue on. They wear it for anything that's not when they're on the court.
Flaugiers with Puma.
Right.
Van Lith was yeah. Even I don't know. Angel got the Reebok after she left. I think. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, point being, regardless of any deal you might have with a competitor of Nike, you can wear their stuff anytime you're not on the playing field or court or whatever it might be. So, but look, shout out to Tristen Keys, obviously. Pretty cool. Signing with Adidas is kind of one of the faces of high school recruiting, and LSU's top-ranked commit, a big reason they have the number 2 class.
Yes. So the Heat there'll always be something to talk about with Keys because top 5 recruit.
Because he's that dude, yeah.
He is that dude. An incredible player, which we've talked about plenty of times. Another receiver, Kenny Darby, sets his final decision date for the 4th of July. Choosing between LSU and Alabama here. Obviously someone that LSU has been very high on for a long time, recruiting for a long time. Do you think do you have?
And they have his commitment still. So
yes, and they do still have his commitment. It's a month away.
Yeah, coming out of Airline, I mean, he led the state in receiving yards as a junior, which is a pretty big accomplishment, obviously, given how many talented receivers are around the state of Louisiana. But Darby committed LSU, and then he kind of said it was shut down, and then Bama hit him up and got him kind of in short order on an official visit a week ago, I guess now, a weekend ago. But look, he had said during that visit, I'll make a final decision on July 4th. I know that from talking to his camp, they had already circled July 4th as the day he was going to have kind of like a celebration thing with his commitment and all that. I think that he sticks with LSU. If nothing changes, and obviously if nothing changes, he's committed, but with where things stand right now, conversation-wise, understanding of where his commitment is, then it's going to be LSU. And his official visit will be June 20th as well. So Tristen Keys will be here June 20th, Kenny Darby, and as well as their 3rd wide receiver commit, Jabari Mack, coming out of Destrehan, a school that's been obviously great to LSU over the years. And seemingly every year LSU signs a Destrehan kid. And Jabari's been committed for a while. We'll see if he even visits Texas. But from talking to folks on that side, they don't think that there's going to be a flip there and that he sticks with LSU. And Matty B, if they get to signing day with Keys, Darby, and Mack, it's arguably the best receiver class in America. So we'll see how these next few weeks go. But certainly ending the month and going into a month-long dead period and having all 3 of them there on campus at the same time, which they had for an unofficial 2 weekends ago. We talked about that on the Bengal Tiger a good bit. But keeping that core group together is the goal. And look, they're hosting other receivers all this month. I mean, this past weekend, they had 2 of the top 10 receivers in the country on campus, and Calvin Russell and Jalen Lott, who's ranked as an athlete because he can play corner or receiver. They'll still recruit others, but if they can just keep those 3, that's their goal. If they can add a 4th, great. If not, they want to hold on to that core group.
Yeah. All right, want to jump to an ad read before we finish off?
Well, let's give Andy a shout out at My Perfect Franchise. We do it every week. It's really in the name on the franchise side in any business that you can think of out there. Andy helps folks out with, and look, he's been a franchise owner. We've talked about this a lot of at a number of different levels, and really over the past few decades has kind of dedicated his life has become this bit, franchise business, and it's sort of developed now into being a consultant, and has been for 10 plus years. So he's right there, border state guy over in Texas, has done a bunch of stuff with folks in the Bengal Tiger, but all you have to do is hit him up, and whatever it might be, you might be saying, hey, I don't know anything about, how to get into a franchise, or, hey, look, I've got this restaurant I'd like to get into, or whatever it might be. He follows it down to how much time you might have, money you might need to spend, everything. He's got it all broken down for you, and you never pay him anything, not start to finish, not a conversation, or all the way to a deal. You will never have to pay Andy anything if you end up getting a deal. Obviously, that franchise and Andy will have an agreement in place. But on your end, to have a consultant for free, just even hit up on email and kind of fill something out is big. And we thank Andy for it. And he's also landed his kind of new deal this offseason was to get into NIL on the college baseball side, which he's a massive college baseball fan. So any deal that he does with each kind of college that he has an ad deal with, like us here at the Bengal Tiger and LSU, he'll kick back some of what ultimately, if you do end up becoming, jumping into a franchise, whatever he's paid out, he'll give some back to LSU baseball, and he's already done that this spring. So shout out to Andy for that, but hit him up, 404-973-9901, 404-973-9901, or email him, Andy, ANDY, at myperfectfranchise.net. You can also just Google My Perfect Franchise and find out more about Andy and what all he does. So shout out to him. Shout out to LSU baseball, who this weekend will be playing in the Super Regionals against West Virginia. Chance to go back to Omaha, but big weekend ahead there. If you're listening to this after the weekend, you've already know the results, but good luck.
Yes, big weekend for LSU baseball.
And your boy Kate Anderson, Matty B. I woke up to the news and saw your story that MLB.com has let out their new projections. They have him going number 1 overall.
Number 1 pick.
He was in the top 5. That was like the headlines before. Now he's number 1.
Can we get number 1 picks? I need to know the parlay odds on this. Number 1 pick in MLB draft, the football draft with Nussmeier, and the women's basketball draft with Flage.
I guess what year was Skeens? He wouldn't have. Yeah, if Daniels would have gone 1, that would have helped.
Daniels was 2. Skeens was.
I don't know. It's the women's basketball side, Matty B. That's the one that we have to see if they can grab a number 1 pick at.
That would be.
And we've been on the run of kind of very headliner page, Buchers and type prospects who were thought Clark of as that. Yeah, before that. Yeah, even Caitlin. That class. These girls were all highly ranked as top 2 or 3 players coming out of high school already. So. I don't know. You tell me who's going number 1.
She's not the favorite, but she could get there. She has a huge year. It wouldn't shock me. But that's an interesting conversation.
Well, Michaela was once the number 1-2 prospect in high school. Her and Juju.
Yep, number 2. So we'll track that. All right, Lamar Brown. We got to talk about.
And Garrett, obviously, you skipped over that. Garrett would be your football number 1 pick right now.
Yes, Garrett would be the football number 1. Sorry,
not Whit Weeks.
Instead of not Whit. Not this time. Not yet.
Time.
Not yet. Lamar Brown,
yes,
number
5-star
player in the country, 5-star, number 1 athlete, number 1 player in Louisiana. Goes to high school on LSU's campus. Yes. Always something to talk about with Lamar Brown. What's the latest, and what do fans need to know?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this when Lamar got into high school and kind of sophomore year when it heated up for him really nationally with the offers from any college you can imagine. Any place O-line, D-line. So like every offer in the world is out there on both sides of the ball. That LSU knew that he was going to make visits, want to explore everything. And I don't want to say they encouraged him to do all that, but like there wasn't a point where early in his recruitment, they could have easily popped Lamar Brown and got him on board. But then if he wants to go do all that, does he decommit? Is he doing it as a committed guy? All of that. I think he's played it right. Look, I know what LSU's all about. He goes to high school on campus. He plays his games next to the indoor practice facility. This is his chance. Like, it made no sense to commit early. Go see everything. I mean, he's going to have visited LSU 150 more times than any other school. But Miami, he was there when Tristen Keys was there. A&M is obviously a team that's been heavily in the mix. Texas is going to host him this weekend. They just locked in that official visit recently.
Yeah.
And really kind of you can keep going from there. I mean, the who's who is on him. But I think this comes down to LSU or Texas A&M, the two teams that have really prioritized him kind of from the start of his recruitment to now. And he's been high on both of them, visited both a ton. My pick's still on LSU. I think really the most notable news of the spring was I expected that he'd be an O-line prospect, and he said that he's kind of focused on D-line. Kevin Peoples is pretty involved in his recruitment. Obviously, they hired Kyle Williams as the D-line coach to replace Bo Davis. Blake Baker is a guy that's now heavily involved. So he's your number one athlete on On3. I don't know how many, 6'4", 6'5", 300, 285 pounders we've had as the number one athlete. But
Yeah.
O-line, D-line doesn't matter. Any college would take him if LSU gets him. Wherever he wants to play sounds good to them.
Yeah, you figure it out later. You get him and you figure it out later. And then we can wrap it up with quarterback, the push for Bowe Bentley, the most prominent quarterback name for LSU in this 2026 class. Just where are they at with him? I know the visits we talked about, and you kind of mentioned it earlier, but where are they at with him, and just what do you want to know?
Yeah, look, Bowe Bentley he's an On3 top 5 quarterback. And as I said earlier, he's the only top 5 quarterback. He might be the only top 10 quarterback that's still uncommitted. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to landing someone in this class, it's the focus for Joe Sloan's really been honed in on Bentley for months now. And look, we've noted this is Friday, June 6th, when we're recording this. If you're listening on Saturday or Sunday, this could be he could be committed to OU. I don't know, because he's down to 2 teams, LSU and Oklahoma. LSU a week ago got, as I said, not just his family, but girlfriend, cousins. Everybody was on campus with him. He's coming out of Texas and really kind of set the tone. I think surged LSU to where you could say, okay, they're the leader, they're the team to beat, but there's only one other team, and it's Oklahoma, and they've been the team to beat the whole time. It's kind of been the feeling. Grew up a fan of Oklahoma. But it's kept
in that North Texas.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So a lot of guys in that area grow up, around Oklahoma fans and watching the Sooners. So it's Oklahoma versus LSU here. And look, am I going to be surprised if he commits to Oklahoma? Of course not. They've been the team that everyone thought was out front from the start. But I'm also not going to be surprised at all if LSU ends up pulling this off, because when we just talk about number one picks, you see Joe Burrow and Jaden win the Heisman. You see what Malik and Brian Thomas and these receivers, Chase and Jefferson, the list goes on, are doing at the NFL level. Those guys are coming through LSU every year, it seems. And certainly when you're recruiting as well as they do in Louisiana and East Texas, you're going to have elite receivers at all times toss in the portal where they've had great success getting receivers. So the pitch to Bowe Bentley is an easy one, right? I mean, this isn't the Lincoln Riley OU days. Right now, LSU is a better-known quarterback school than Oklahoma would be. If you're talking kind of guys they put out in recent years, and now Nussmeier, as we noted, kind of joking around, not really, is trending to maybe be the number one pick. I mean, he is the odds-on favorite to win the Heisman right now. So I think that this could go either way. We'll see how the weekend trip to Norman goes. He's visited there a bunch already, so that his family's kind of seen it. His whole family had not seen LSU yet, but it's one of those two teams. And look, he didn't even have a decision date set. That's why I said you could listen to this in 24 hours and it might be over. Or you're listening in a month and it's not over. I think he's just going to let the dust settle and pick between one of these two schools.
It's fascinating. It is fascinating. The number 5 quarterback of the country on 3, like you said, a vast majority, if not all, the rest of the top 10 is committed somewhere. So feels like all their chips are into the Bowe Bentley pool here, and if not, you kind of, I mean, we know how stacked the 2027 quarterback class is, so there's not.
And you never want to skip a year in recruiting quarterback in high school. even though you have the portal, and I know that they had to do it this past year, not by choice, but when Bryce Underwood flips to Michigan in the 11th hour on this historic NIL deal, they didn't, you got like 2 weeks to sign a high school quarterback, and they end up going and getting Mississippi State's starter from a year ago out of the portal in Van Buren and sign him. So I think Joe Sloan, I know Joe Sloan wants to sign a high school quarterback in this class. That just means it's either going to be Bowe Bentley or he's going to have to flip somebody. So I don't think you sit around saying like, okay, now we got to go after this other kid because he's not committed anywhere. They've been on guys that are committed before they kind of honed in on Bentley. So we'll see on Bentley, and after that, very quickly, I think we kind of see what route Joe Sloan wants to go with, who or what small group of quarterbacks he might turn to next.
Yeah. All right. That's all we got for y'all today. Hope y'all enjoyed the recruiting pod. As always, you can check out all the latest content. Most of what we talked about has already been on the site for days, if not weeks at this point. So check out the Bengal Tiger On3. Subscribe if you haven't already. At least just give us a shot. I think it's $1 for a week, I believe. So yeah, give us a shot over there. But if you're on the YouTube side, leave us a like, comment, share, subscribe. If you haven't already, send it to a friend. If you're on the audio side, leave us a 5-star rating and review. Thank you all for joining us, and we will talk to y'all later.